All right, welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're doing a deep dive, a really fascinating, deeply mystical dive into Chapter 5 of Marco Dane's book, Spirit Matters. We're going to focus entirely on this one specific chapter, which is all about the astral body. We'll be exploring the profound struggles of spiritual awakening and really getting into the ultimate surrender that's required for true enlightenment. So let's just jump right in, because the very first line of this chapter, man, it just hits you right in the chest. Dane writes, "There are claws in my astral body gnawing deep at my soul." I mean, just pause for a second and feel the emotional weight of that. He's not talking about, a mild inconvenience here. This is a visceral, incredibly painful spiritual struggle. And it really sets the stage for a chapter that is all about the intense friction between our spiritual essence and the heavy density of our physical existence. And you can see how this elegant, abstract line art brilliantly captures that exact feeling. Look at the swirling, overlapping lines. It perfectly illustrates the confusing, kind of chaotic exhaustion that Dane describes right at the start of the chapter. He writes about wearing down, feeling physically weak, and being surrounded by something very cloudy and dark. When you are in the thick of a spiritual crisis, it doesn't look like a clear, straight roadmap, right? It looks exactly like this: tangled, intricate, and just deeply overwhelming. So, what exactly are these claws? Well, if we translate this metaphor into something we can all relate to in our daily lives, Dane is really describing the heavy burden of spiritual disconnection. Those claws, they represent the anxiety, the deep spiritual stagnation, and that existential fatigue that gnaws at us when we're just out of alignment with our true selves. It is that awful feeling of being completely drained by the illusions of everyday life, leaving us in a state of darkness and profound exhaustion. And this deep exhaustion leads directly into this really paradoxical internal conflict. Dane writes that all he wants is to sleep, literally to sleep away this dream. But simultaneously, he's trying to wake up. It's such a fascinating tension. On the one hand, the pain of the spiritual struggle makes him just want to check out, right? To sleep and completely escape the friction of existence. But then, on the other hand, there's this deep, soul-level need to wake up to the actual truth, to pierce right through the veil of what he calls the illusion. Now, looking at how this dichotomy plays out, on one side, you've got the desire to sleep. That's the very human urge to just escape the overwhelming nature of the dream, which is Dane's term for our physical reality. But then, on the flip side, there's this absolute need to wake up and escape the illusion altogether. What's really interesting here is that spiritual growth is rarely a straight line. It's a constant tug of war. We are wrestling with the illusions of modern physical reality every day, caught somewhere between the easy comfort of spiritual unconsciousness and the demanding, honestly often painful work of true awakening. So, what keeps us stuck in this endless tug of war? Well, Dane points directly to our own errors. He wonders how he can truly see when he makes, and I quote, "the mistakes that keep me in a slumber far too deep to wake out of the dream of this illusion." I want you to really consider this for a moment. What daily mistakes in your own life keep you locked in that state of spiritual unconsciousness? What habits or what attachments to the physical world are literally keeping your astral body weighed down in that deep slumber? And when those mistakes compound over time, we hit a crisis. I'm going to slow down a bit here, because the imagery Dane uses next gets incredibly heavy. He describes the sensation of sinking. It's that overwhelming feeling when life hits its absolute peak, and the physical illusion feels like it's quite literally swallowing you whole. At this point, he's no longer just tired. He is full-on drowning in the deep.
Let's actually walk through this cascading sequence to break down the sensory metaphor here. First off, you're making the mistakes that bind you to the physical illusion. Second, you naturally sink into a deeper spiritual slumber as a result. Third, you get this vivid sensation of hearing water bubbling deep and around the crown being that energetic center at the top of the head, our literal connection to the spiritual realm. And finally, falling ever so deep and almost giving up the fight entirely. It's a remarkably powerful representation of spiritual overwhelm, where the sheer density of the physical world threatens to just extinguish our spiritual spark.
Look closely at this specific line: "continue to drown hearing every bubbling and mumbling of the water deep and around my crown." Now, why does this matter to you and me? Because we have all been there. That bubbling and mumbling, that's the relentless noise of the mundane world. It's the anxieties, the societal pressures, the constant demands of the ego. Understanding this feeling of being swallowed by the physical world is absolutely crucial. It's the first step to recognizing that you are, in fact, in an illusion. You have to realize you're drowning before you can even figure out how to survive. But, okay, here is the incredible turning point. Just as he's almost giving up the fight, something deep down sparks him back to life. And we're talking about a true spiritual vitality here, not just physical life. The solution he discovers is completely counterintuitive. It's the epiphany of surrender. To escape the drowning, you don't fight harder against the water, you actually have to stop fighting entirely. You have to embrace the wisdom of falling.
Consider this crucial realization he drops on us. Knowing is nothing unless you're willing to fall. Dane is basically telling us that all the spiritual knowledge in the world, reading every book, understanding all the concepts intellectually, it actually amounts to absolutely nothing if you aren't willing to let go of your ego's control. The logic here is just beautiful. The solution to our intense spiritual struggle isn't aggressive resistance. For sure, it's not fighting back. It is complete, humble surrender. Let's pin down exactly what Dane means by this act of falling. He's fundamentally redefining the whole idea of knowing nothing. He doesn't mean ignorance or a lack of education. Actually, scratch that. It's more about recognizing that our ego's grasp on reality is flawed. Knowing nothing is the ultimate spiritual surrender that's required to gain true wisdom. It requires us to drop our absolute certainty about how the physical world works. We have to be completely humble. Only by falling away from our pride can we actually rise spiritually. And that brings us to the ascent, which is just breathtaking. When you finally let go, when you allow yourself to just fall and admit, hey, I know nothing, it is like a massive weight is lifted. The darkness actually begins to clear. That heavy water that was drowning you, it just dissipates. You effortlessly transition from the state of exhausting resistance into a state of profound, weightless illumination. By surrendering the heavy baggage of the ego, your astral body is finally free to become what it was always meant to be, a powerful beacon of light. This brilliant visual perfectly captures that newly awakened state. You see the mind, and it's no longer trapped by the physical illusion. Instead, it's expanding outward, surrounded by these cosmic orbits and stars. This represents waking up to our true astral potential. Remember early in the chapter, Dane feared his mind would just go to waste in the slumber of illusion? Well, through surrender, the mind is fully activated. It becomes a beacon, deeply connected to the universal source, ensuring our potential is definitely not put to waste. Dane wraps up this profound little micro-arc with a powerful mandate for how we should actually live once we reach this state. He says that when it's time to shine and be that beacon of light, it will be the time to, quote, lead by example and show that we know nothing at all. The ultimate resolution to those gnawing claws in our astral body isn't to become some loud guru who claims to have all the answers. No way. The true spiritual master leads entirely through humility, showing others the incredible freedom that comes from letting go of the ego's constant need to know everything. So, as we wrap up this deep dive specifically into Chapter 5, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought. What illusions are you stubbornly clinging to in your own daily life? What certainties and ego-driven knowledge are acting like weights, just pulling you deeper under the water? And most importantly, are you finally ready to fall? To admit you know nothing so that you can truly become the light? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating text with me. I really hope this helps you navigate your own spiritual awakening. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.